The opposition acknowledges the unprecedented impact that the COVID-19 pandemic is having on the education sector worldwide, and accepts that our children must learn from home for a time. We accept that the approach for PEP, while not ideal, is probably the best that can be done in the current circumstances, and we await the upcoming decision on the CXC and CAPE. But Minister, when you stated that 31,000 students have no internet access, I think that is where I have to depart company from you. Minister, if you think that only 5 or 6% of enrolled students are not accessing internet, and therefore the other 95% are accessing the government-mandated remote learning, then Minister, you are being delusional, and whoever is advising you. All the surveys that I'm aware of, and from discussions with the JTA and with many, many principals across Jamaica, suggest that between 25 and 50% of students are receiving anything that could be considered a minimum acceptable level of remote learning. So that means at least half of our students are not getting anything near acceptable. Students of traditional schools and from stronger socioeconomic backgrounds generally have much better access than the students of struggling schools, the students from poorer families, and the students who live and attend school in the deep rural areas. The sudden introduction of remote learning has only exacerbated the inequities in the educational system. A significant percentage of students have no reliable access to the internet. Many educational professionals were ill-prepared for the abrupt transition since they had never been trained to effectively deliver instruction online. And some, and I acknowledge that some are receiving that instruction now, but some still do not have what I would call the digital infrastructure available to them to make effective use of these virtual platforms. Household internet access in Jamaica is estimated at only 55%, which is not adequate to support the teaching and learning needs of all students. Additionally, many parents and indeed teachers have been complaining of an inability to afford data packages to access these platforms from mobile devices. And even while the packages may now be discounted, the truth is they need direct financial support to support access. I'm not saying this to blame the government or to try and panic our parents. But the truth is, if we don't acknowledge the reality of what is taking place, then we will not take adequate measures to compensate our students for this period of lost learning. 10 days ago, Mr. Speaker, the opposition called for the establishment of a broad-based task force under the auspices of the National Council on Education to assess and plan for the long-term impact of COVID-19 on the education sector. This is not something impacting us for only a couple of months. This 6-month gap in classroom contact time is going to take years to compensate for. The proposed task force must seriously consider how to reconfigure the next academic year to help students catch up and mitigate the long-term impact emanating from the COVID-19 lockdown. The task force should also determine the changes necessary to make the educational infrastructure more resilient to the impact of future pandemics or similar disruptions. Such changes, for example, Mr. Speaker, would include ensuring that all students are media literate, accelerating the adoption of technology in the whole teaching and learning process across the board, and training all teachers to effectively deliver online instruction. I would say to the minister, I know he calls the JTA and he calls the parent teachers groups. They should be around the table looking at all the data that is available and participating in a real way in the decision making that's going to affect their children. I cannot leave the issue of the quantity of tablet computers that will be distributed. Because truthfully, even though the minister has pointed to a start, what we're talking about there, the numbers we're talking about there, is really only tokenism in the face of what is needed. It falls far short of what the government committed to do for both teachers and students many years ago. Had the Universal Service Fund not completely bungled the procurement of tablet computers over the last 4 years, there would today be tens of thousands of tablet computers in the system to mitigate the impact of this school closure. The provision of tablets to teachers was part of the contract that was agreed for the 2017 to the 2021 period. We're now coming towards the end of that period, and we're still talking about beginning the distribution of these tablets. And if past performance is any indication, we could very well see that these deadlines are missed once again. Even in the face of a crisis, we must not abandon accountability.